Coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show, we will talk about the NBA All-Star Weekend and preview the second half of the season, go over some late-season college basketball, and we will talk about whether or not the Major League Baseball will begin the season on time. All that and more coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
you're
I'm the Feinbaum of this show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the torso.
Good morning and welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm Jason Kinander. She's Edly Termilien. We have a loaded slate for you today. A lot to talk about, a lot to recap, a lot to preview. So why don't we get started with one of our favorite segments, Who's Hot, Who's Not. Why don't you start? Give me your Who's Hot.
Who's Hot is the Lady Longhorns for basketball. And I agree with Vic Savior. Y'all need to come to the games. Number 11 in the country, and I bet after the TCU game, they're going to be number 10 in the country. I mean, they need the support. A young team, just think about like next year. They have a really young team, and Roy Hartman is just such a beast.
She is, and Xavier Worthy said on Twitter that he's going to be at the game this weekend, so hopefully everybody else will follow suit. We need to support our Lady Longhorns, especially because they are probably the best basketball team on campus. My Who's Hot, still staying in basketball, different league though, Steph Curry. How could you have possibly missed what he did over the weekend in the All-Star game? 16 three-pointers. Would have been an NBA record had the game counted, but it is the All-Star game. Still impressive nonetheless. He scored 50 points, winning the All-Star game MVP in his home state of Ohio, in the midst of the worst shooting season in his career. In case there's ever a doubt, Stephen Curry still is the greatest shooter in NBA history.
I have to agree. Honestly, they call him the best shooter for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, after breaking that record, even this is like the worst shooting of his career right now. Like, it feels like it's not. It feels like we're going into like a different like era with him.
Absolutely.
And after that injury he had about a year ago, it feels like he's like back at it. And with Clay on his side, they can go all the way.
Absolutely. So we talked about who's hot, who's not, who is cold for you.
Who's cold? Let's go back in the All-Star weekend. It is Jalen Green. I'm sorry, the whole dunk contest was just not it. He had cold feet. It feels like at one point he was confident, and then it just went downhill. And when Shaquille O'Neal is a meme on Twitter, you made Shaquille O'Neal to meme, it is just, it's bad. It's bad. But honestly, I think he can make a comeback next year if he wanted to.
So for my Who's Not, I think that it would have been beating around a dead bush to go with that slam dunk contest because it was just so bad. So I went with a little bit of college basketball pick, and my Who's Not are the Indiana Hoosiers. It took them up until yesterday, Thursday, the last game of the month, second to last game of the month, sorry, make that because they have a game on Saturday, for them to win their first game of the month. Indiana came into the season, bona fide tournament team. They had performed well in Big Ten play. They performed well against Purdue, upset Purdue, one of the top teams in the country, to end the month of January, and then came out flat. On two separate occasions this month alone, they have had several players suspended for a game for disciplinary reasons. Cannot have that, especially with the team with some very good veterans, some good transfers. Trace Jackson Davis is one of the best players in the country, and Indiana just cannot figure it out. Definitely not hot. Definitely not hot.
Yeah. I mean, them winning last night just put a damper in your Who's Not. But I mean, it's kind of like they're like that sneaky team, like, just because we suck, hey, we can still beat y'all. So it's kind of like a Jacksonville.
I do agree with that. They have some ability to make some waves in March, but February certainly was not their month. So now we're going to move on to what's trending. Last time talking about All-Star Weekend, plenty of action was happening across the All-Star Weekend. What was your favorite moment, and do you think that this All-Star Weekend was a success?
Although Steph Curry did steal the show, I have to give it to John Morant. He did a dunk that people were missing from the dunk contest. And it just shows that maybe one day he can get into the dunk contest. It's just really like when you see him dunking, it's just like, man, the country needs you to be in the slam dunk contest, Morant.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that it was a success, and given that this was the first All-Star game in 2 years where it was a full spectacle, full crowd, it was really cool. And seeing the way that the game ended with LeBron James hitting that turnaround fadeaway in Cleveland, I think it just showed that the way that the NBA has formatted the All-Star game has been a success. When they first did it a couple years back, in honor of Kobe Bryant, a lot of people were skeptical because it's not like a natural way of playing a basketball game, but it is objectively more exciting, creates more storylines, and there was no other way that we were going to have the All-Star game end on the final shot by LeBron James. So I think it was a success. NBA season did start up yesterday now, after All-Star break. Finally, thankfully. Give me your Eastern Conference, Western Conference regular season pick.
Okay, for the East, and I can't believe they're an underdog, but the Miami Heat. Like, no one's talking about the Miami Heat. And I think they're going to be that sneaky team that gets back into the finals. After the COVID, the bubble season, and them, Jimmy Butler giving his all and losing like that to the Lakers, I think they're going to come back and redeem themselves for the Eastern Conference Finals. But for my West has 3 teams for me: Warriors, Suns, and the Memphis Grizzlies. But I'm going to take the Warriors if Draymond Green comes back, because you can really tell that defensively they need him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your Western Conference pick. I'm going to go with the Warriors as well, especially because Chris Paul is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks for Phoenix. I'm a big supporter of Memphis this season, but I don't think they quite have the veterans to get to the top, at least in the regular season. So my Western Conference pick is going to be the Warriors. My Eastern Conference pick is going to be the Chicago Bulls. And my reasoning behind that, there are 2 main reasons. 2 of the top contenders in the East, the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, are going to have some hiccups to start the second half. James Harden's making his Sixers debut tonight. Obviously, James Harden is a top 10. But a team like the Sixers that gave up so much talent to get him is going to have an adjustment before they hit their stride. Same with the Brooklyn Nets with Ben Simmons once he's back in the fold. The Chicago Bulls are getting healthy at the right time. In the coming weeks, Patrick Williams will make his season debut. Lonzo Ball will be back after a 6 to 8 week layoff, and Alex Caruso will be back after a multi-month layoff. DeMar DeRozan's probably playing the best basketball of his career. He scored 35 plus in 8 consecutive games. Zach LaVine is another All-Star, and Ayo Dosunmu continues to have a spectacular rookie season. So the Bulls are my pick out of the Eastern Conference. They're young, they're different, they're not who we thought it would be, but have to go with the sleeper, have to go with the underdog. It's what the Phoenix Suns did last year, and it made the season so exciting. So, final question. Texas men's basketball will play in their final game in the Erwin Center on Monday. What is your favorite memory of attending a game there?
My favorite memory, would be on Wednesday at the TCU game. And just getting lost. Sometimes getting lost at an arena that's kind of like a circle is like the fun part, because you kind of see, they have pictures all over the walls of concerts and moments from the Erwin Center. And it's just kind of cool to see like all the memories of the Erwin Center. So that's my favorite moment.
So my favorite memory of the Frank Erwin Center isn't actually playing a game there. It's from a school project that I did last semester. I did a documentary story for a class on the Frank Erwin Center, the final season of it, and I was actually lucky enough to interview Brock Cunningham and meet him in front of the Erwin Center and talk to him about some of his favorite memories, what the Erwin Center has meant to him. Obviously, he's from Austin. He's been going games his entire life, and just to hear firsthand from somebody that the Erwin Center means so much to as both a fan and a player was really, really cool, because Erwin Center, I mean, being a sophomore, only been around a couple of years, it's hard to really be able to embrace what the Erwin Center means to the campus community, but to hear it through the words and experiences of others really showed just how much it means. So my favorite memory wasn't necessarily any game. Of course, the Tennessee game was cool in person. Texas Tech game, even though Texas didn't come out on top, was still an unforgettable atmosphere, but that'll be my favorite memory of the Erwin Center. As we wrap up the Erwin Center's final season, we're also going to wrap up A Block. We're going to move to B Block. Coming up next, BS or Real Talk. We'll be with you. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the 100 Sports Show, and now we're doing BS and Real Talk. So the first question, the MLB season will lose the regular season, BS or Real Talk?
Ooh, well, this is a really tricky question because of the wording of it. Will the MLB season lose regular season games? I actually think that that's BS. Now, do I think the season will start on time? I don't think the season will start on time. Right now, the place that things are standing is the owners have set a deadline. It's February 28th to get to an agreement. If an agreement is not reached by the 28th, the new collective bargaining agreement, the MLB says that they will begin to cancel games, they will not make up those games, and the players will not be paid for those games. Now, even though the two sides are so far apart, there has been so much motivation by both sides to meet all week. I think that both sides really do want to play the season, and considering the fact that baseball only played 60 games in 2020, both the players and the owners know that this is a league that cannot afford to dip in popularity anymore. I think that both sides will finally come to their senses, and it won't happen this week. I think that the season will be delayed a little bit because the players need a month of spring training, but at the end of the day, I don't think that we're going to play anything short of a full 162 this year. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, BS, because it's just the situation's really bad, and you wouldn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you saw it like starting to happen, but now it like blows up in our face, and I feel like it should have been fixed like a long time ago.
That's what everybody's saying, and the players want to play. The fans want baseball. The owners need to hold up their end of the bargain, and hopefully it'll happen soon. So next question, Jimmy Garoppolo will be traded before next season. BS or Real Talk?
Real Talk. I think after the Super Bowl, they're just done with him. And after drafting another quarterback, and I think Trey Lance, he kind of reminds me of a Colin Kaepernick, just like the running style and everything. And so my team that Jimmy Garoppolo would go to is either the Steelers, Colts, or Tampa Bay. Colts don't want Carson Wentz anymore. Steelers are in a question mark for a quarterback. They might pull a Patriots and just let the season go and get a quarterback. Or Tampa Bay, I mean, he could follow Tom Brady's footsteps, and they really have a good offensive receiver core. So
I completely agree with you that I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is so far out the door, and based on what he said in his departure press conference, he thanked the reporters and he thanked the fans for such a great ride in San Francisco, so he knows he's gone. And I actually am going to completely agree with you saying that Pittsburgh Steelers definitely jump out to me as a landing spot. They could use Garoppolo as a one-year transition guy like what the Patriots did with Cam Newton. They already have an offense that has weapons that Jimmy Garoppolo could succeed in. Not the offensive line that'll set him up to succeed, but the rebuild on offense won't be a one-year thing for Pittsburgh. I think that they're going to try to take a flyer on a guy like Garoppolo. Either way, San Francisco, it'll be Trey Lance or somebody else to start next season. So.
Okay. Aaron Rodgers will be back next year. BS or Real Talk?
This of the questions that we have, this is definitely the most difficult for me. And I think that Aaron Rodgers, I do not think he wants to be back in Green Bay. I also do not think he wants to lose. I think that if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back to the NFL, he wants to make it worth his time. And really the only opportunity that you could see that being in would be Denver, because it would be sort of like Tom Brady going to Tampa. They already have a Super Bowl caliber offense minus a quarterback. Yeah. It's a familiar play caller, coaching system. But Aaron Rodgers has had a very interesting year in his personal life. He's been in the news very frequently for his vaccine stances. He recently broke up with his fiancée, Shailene Woodley, who he was set to be married to. And I don't think that Aaron Rodgers truly loves football the way that he used to, and he's getting older, and this season just felt like so much of a last ride. Yeah. I can't think that he'll be back in Green Bay, but I can't see him on any other team, but I'm going to have to go with BS.
I gotta agree with you. And I also think Denver is a good place, and it's like known for maybe a Peyton Manning type of vibe. But the situation with Green Bay, it's like will they, won't they? It's kind of like high school. And so being at the age of 38, like his whole draft class is gone basically. And it's like he's the only one standing after Stanford and Wilson, who are the next older quarterbacks. Yeah. And after what Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Allen, and Mahomes were doing this season, I mean, teams want young quarterbacks, and it's getting to a new generation. So I think he's going to retire there, but going to Denver is his only option.
That is really crazy what you said, that Aaron Rodgers is really the last old quarterback left in the NFL. We've had so many guys retire in the past few years. Peyton and Eli Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers. Everybody's out the door. Aaron Rodgers, the last elder statesman. Final question. Texas men's basketball, will they make at least the Sweet 16?
I think they will. Going to the TC game, I think they have grit. I think sometimes they don't believe in themselves, especially when it comes to teams like Baylor, Kansas, and I think they can go to Kansas and beat Kansas again if they wanted to. You can see the chemistry is getting there. Jones is getting his shots. Carr is getting into the groove, and Allen, people have been picky on Allen, and he's getting there. So, I mean, their starting lineup is pretty solid. Coach Beard, when Coach Beard is going to be in that mode, he's in the mode. He doesn't think about anything. So I think they're going to go up to West Virginia and beat them. And I see them going into the Sweet 16.
I'm going to go with real talk as well, and I'm going to be very cautious with how I say that I think that they will make the Sweet 16, and there are 3 reasons why. Number 1, Chris Beard has never lost a first-round tournament game in his coaching career, and that includes his first-round tournament game with University of Arkansas Little Rock, where they upset Purdue as a 12 seed back in 2016. So Coach Beard conditions his teams to be tournament ready. Number 2, defense always travels well. Shooting doesn't always travel, but defense always travels well. And while this Texas team has struggled mightily on offense at times, they've been very, very streaky, the defense has generally traveled everywhere. And I trust that unless this team has a glaring size disadvantage like they did against Gonzaga, that's a game that they likely won't ever have much of a chance of winning. But if they can play, if they face teams, if they get a generous side of the bracket, if they end up being a 4 seed, I think that this team could make a run because, you're right, they are gritty. They have senior leadership, very, very important in March. They have guys Ramey, Jones, Timmy and Marcus Carr, probably their final rides in college basketball. They're going to want to come out on top. And these guys that have lost every tournament game that they've played at Texas are going to want to be remembered for something else. So I'm going to say based on that they will make the Sweet 16, but you never know when it comes to Texas basketball. Right. Absolutely never know.
Okay, and top 4 teams in the NCAA men's team. So who you got? So
my top 4, and this is, it feels like we say this every year, and this is probably why college basketball is the greatest sport. It's wide open. It's wide open every single year. And I think that, my number 1, and I thought about this a lot, my number 1 is Gonzaga because they have experience, Nembhard, Timmy, they have incredibly exciting freshmen in the form of Hunter Salas, Nolan Hickman, and who can ever forget Chet Holmgren and Mark Few, and he definitely wants to win a championship, and he's finally recruiting at a high level like a blue blood. Gonzaga's been awesome. They're my number 1. My number 2, Arizona. Surprise team of the year. Looking like the most balanced team in the country. First team in recent memory to be top 3 in scoring offense, rebounding offense, and passing offense. This team is awesome. All around, great team. They have a potential top 5 pick in Benedict Mathurin. Really cool, streaky players like Kerr Kriisa, Christian Coloco, Azonas Tubelis. They're a fun squad, a lot of cool names to know. They're my number 2 team. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Duke Blue Devils. Coach K's final ride. Really good squad, lots of fun freshmen. A.J. Griffin looking like a top 10 pick. Paolo Banchero is going to be a top 3 pick. Mark Williams having an awesome sophomore season for the Blue Devils. Coach K's got his guys in good position. And number 4, a team that I have really liked all season, Purdue Boilermakers. Not a very good defensive squad, but a very good offensive squad. And I really enjoy the 2-center set that Matt Painter plays with Zach Edey and Travion Williams. Plays them both about 20 minutes a game, causes matchup nightmares for every Big Ten team. Edey's a potential first-round pick. Williams has been a spectacular player all 4 years at Purdue. I really like the Boilermakers. Their balance between talent and Jaden Ivey, size in those 2, and coaching experience in Matt Painter.
Okay, my 4, I got Gonzaga because I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to come back. They want to be number 1 again. I think they want to be champions again. And the way how they're looking defensively, it's really looking like Gonzaga. They're number 1. And then Kentucky, I put Kentucky in number 2. I mean, they just have the chemistry. I really like the chemistry. They have a young team. They do have some senior leadership. And I just see them offensively. They got it. Number 3 is Arizona. They're very, it's a really
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. In our latest edition of Alumni, Where Are They Now? Our very own Adam Ogburn was lucky enough to talk to Texas men's basketball alumni Connor Lammert. So we will send it down to Adam. Check it out.
It is my pleasure to welcome on to the 1-0 Sports Show Texas basketball alum Connor Lammert. Connor, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me
Doing
on.
awesome. It's awesome to have you on our first ever Alumni Where Are They Now segment. Great to start off with a former basketball player right here in the heart of basketball season.
Exciting. Thanks for having me, man.
For sure. So, I mean, the first question, as the kind of title segment says, what are you up to now since you graduated from Texas in 2016? What have the past 5 or 6 years looked like for you, Connor?
Oh, man, I'll say it's been 6 years. Well, now I work for Endeavor Real Estate Group. We're a commercial real estate development company here in Austin. But right after I graduated, I went to Japan, where I played for 3 seasons. It's interesting, kind of overseas. There's literally like every country has probably a handful of leagues. So there's a ton of options, but the Texas kind of relationship with Japan, it runs deep. There was probably, Dexter Pittman, Clint Chapman, Prince eBay, Jonathan Holmes. Like there's been a lot of Texas guys that have been through there. So we had good relationships with them and some good agents that take care of us over there. So, I'm a Texas boy. When do you ever get to go live in a foreign country like that? So that was my 3 years. Came back in the summer, worked out at UT, and then realized, hey, let's start my career. Missed Austin, missed Central Texas. So felt like commercial real estate was something I wanted to get into, and had a lot of good mentors that actually played for UT, as in Brad Buckman, Connor Ashley, Chris McCulpin, Will Wyatt. A lot of those guys were already in the business. So it was kind of a seamless transition.
For sure. Did you ever see, you're a corporate communication major. Did you kind of see yourself going kind of that business kind of real estate track, or how'd you get into it?
Yeah, well, what I liked about corporate communications is like it didn't really pigeonhole you into one certain thing or career path. And like I said, it was really talking to Brad Buckman and Connor Ashley and Andrew Dick even when I was playing at UT. Learning what they did. Didn't really know what I wanted to do after basketball. I knew I wanted to play for a living, but knew that ball was going to stop bouncing. So that coupled with my passion for Austin and Central Texas, where I really cover anywhere from San Antonio to Waco, and everywhere in between. And that on top of me living in a foreign country, really missing home and what makes Austin great, really got me into it. And then also, I guess, bringing it back, my colleague, my old teammate at UT, Ryan McClurg, he is at Endeavor, kind of taught me the ropes before I even took the job. So that is a culmination of those things that really got me interested.
Can definitely see the basketball connections throughout. So let's get back to the basketball court. Let's rewind a decade or so. So, you went to Churchill High School. Your brother Clark went to Texas Tech. He played at Texas Tech same time you were at Texas. You had an offer from Tech, had an offer from A&M. Kind of what led you to make the decision to go to Texas?
Well, it's a good question. My whole family is kind of all over Texas as far as allegiance to schools. One of my great relatives, is Earl Rudder, one of the former presidents of Texas A&M. So my grandfather went there. My oldest brother went to Texas A&M. Didn't play, but Clark, as you mentioned, we got to play against each other for 3 years when he was at Tech. I mean, out of all those places, Austin is such a dynamic city, and getting a degree from the University of Texas, I mean, it can take you anywhere. And I knew that I wanted that. And, you just don't turn down UT. I mean, it could have been North Carolina or Duke. being a Texas boy, being an hour away from San Antonio, where my folks could come up to every game, my grandparents could come to every game. It was kind of a no-brainer for me. Although, I did really appreciate everyone who did recruit me. And it came down ultimately to Texas A&M and UT, and it was a hard decision. But ultimately, I think wearing the burnt orange and seeing what that degree could really do for you, and it's provided some fruit. But it's one of those things it's hard to turn down, the burnt orange and white.
For sure. And so you played over 4 years. You had 72 starts, if my counting is correct. Texas was a combined 80 and 56 over your 4 years. So, you had a lot of time on the court for the Longhorns, played in a lot of big games. Do you have a favorite memory that sticks out to you as a Texas basketball player?
I think there's a lot. As a team, memory, when we beat North Carolina, I think my senior year, we were actually pretty fortunate against UNC, and I think Rick Barnes was almost undefeated against them. But we were 3-0 against them, and it was really the last game when I was with Shaka Smart, when Javon Felix makes that last second shot, and the crowd just goes crazy, and I'm worried. I'm not celebrating yet because I think I fouled the guy. But fortunately, they couldn't go back and review that. But that was my favorite memory as a team related, and personal memories. I mean, I think my first start was certainly memorable against Iowa State at home, and I don't know. I think just the memories over the years with my teammates. Those are the things that stick with you forever, because those are relationships. The other ones are moments, but that's probably the best.
For sure. And as a part of playing in those big games for the Longhorns, you also went up against a lot of the talented players as Texas. I mean, we've seen this year just how loaded the Big 12 is year in and year out in basketball. So, are there a player or two that come to mind that you had to guard that you think was maybe the toughest assignment you got as a Longhorn?
As a Longhorn, I would say it was actually off the court, was somewhat, and it was actually in a practice facility where Kevin Durant would come back. And that, I mean, by far, he was the most talented player. He would, for example, he would shoot pre-game by himself, and he would make negative faces, and just smack his lip when he hit the rim. And it went in. And when it was a swish, he was okay with it. But he was the best player I've ever played against in my life. But on the hardwood, when it mattered, I'd say Otto Porter Jr. He had the quietest 26, I think, against us when we played Georgetown up in Madison Square Garden. And, they got the best of us that game. They were a really strong team. And he was out of conference. We only played him once, but he was probably the most well-rounded player that I've played against. And then, you got guys like Joel Embiid. They were really good. They probably got a lot better in the NBA. I'd say they weren't as great, but Andrew Wiggins is another big name at Kansas. You kind of see a trend. A lot of those guys went to Kansas. They were always really good. But no, I mean, I think the best part about going to UT is the competition that you have internally, and getting to play against, the Jonathan Holmes and Miles Turner and, Cam Ridley, Prince Ebay every day in practice. That's what made you better on the court. And, iron sharpens iron. They were the true iron that sharpened me. So that was a really good part about it. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of really talented players. But no, I think those guys were certainly on top. And then, the Kentucky guys, Karl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein, and the Harrison twins. I mean, we played them once, almost beat them. I'd like to think if we had Isaiah Taylor that game, I think we would have come out on the better end of that. But we were fortunate to play against some really, really good players.
Yeah, for sure. And then you kind of mentioned this earlier in the interview, after your UT career wrapped up, you got a chance to play in Japan for 3 years. So kind of what was that experience like? What adjustments did you have to make going and playing overseas? Just kind of break it down for us who don't really know much about the Japanese Basketball League.
Sure. So it's actually, I mean, people might think that Europe is the most competitive overseas league, and they're correct. But I wouldn't discount the Japanese league because there's a lot of former NBA guys that go play over there and kind of finish their careers out. The Japanese players are very talented. Physically, they're not as obviously physical as guys you would see in the NBA or even at a D1 level. And that's not a blanket statement. There are some exceptions, but their commitment to the game, their skill level, their aggressiveness and tenacity, and the heart they play with, it's more than a lot of people that I've played against, for sure, even in the U.S. So that was really interesting. And then what a lot of people don't know is that they have certain rules where you have to limit the number of imports, me being an import. So we can only have 3 on the team. So, it's typically big guys match up against big guys. I'm not posting up, 5'10" Japanese guy for a living, but that was really neat. And just the culture that we alluded to before the interview. I mean, it was unparalleled to anything that I've ever seen. You hop off the plane and you're in a new world, and you don't get that experience just being raised in Texas. So I was really grateful for that. But the Japanese people welcomed me and my teammates, and it was interesting. I actually played with Cameron Ridley my first year in Hiroshima. So that was cool. But yeah, the Japanese people are amazing. Such a beautiful country. I recommend you go try to visit one day if you can. I think you'd experience the same thing.
For sure. And so you mentioned that after, Japan, came back to Austin, kind of got in the real estate business, but, one of the bonuses being back in Austin, you've been able to kind of be around UT sports. I know you've been spotted at the Erwin Center a couple of times this year. So kind of what's the atmosphere been like, being back in the Erwin Center and seeing what Coach Beard has kind of done with the program?
It's been pretty special. There's always a transition year, and I don't think that Beard uses that as an excuse for anything. I mean, shoot, they're playing pretty well right now, but you got a lot of new faces on the team, and I think the way that he interacts with the students, the fan base, the alumni, it's something that we get really excited about as alumni and former players. He's really united the family, as he's saying. That's why you're noticing a lot of more old guys like me coming back to support. And I think that's important. But, I've seen it through 3 different coaches. Everyone had their own style. But I think that, he does do an exceptional job. And, it's going to get there, especially with the new arena. I think that's just going to bring a whole new level of excitement and gives fans another reason to come. But no, I'm excited for it. I think that they've played well. They've certainly had some adversity, but it's going to be interesting to see how they finish the season. And shout out to my old assistant coach, Chris Ogden. He's back at UT now, and he's loving it. So always good to see them.
For sure. Final question. Texas Day, they got a big game against West Virginia this Saturday. Got to go up to Morgantown. You think the Longhorns can get it done up there?
Yeah, I think we can. I don't think West Virginia's playing particularly well this year. It's a tough place to play. I'm excited to hear what's on the little newspapers that they have. They were always talking crap about a girlfriend or family or something, and then they just all tear them up. And so during the intros, when they're playing UT or playing whoever they're announcing that they're playing against, like the fans are reading their newspapers, like they don't really care. And then they tear it up and they kind of throw it up like confetti. But funny story real quick, when I think it was my last year, it was a snowstorm, ice on the road, big traffic jam. And, our hotel's not more than 2 miles away. So we didn't get a police escort this time. And sure enough, the traffic jam hits, we're stuck. The clock ticks down to probably 30 minutes pregame. We usually get there an hour and a half before the game, get ready, get taped. We were getting taped in the bus, and we get there with Shaka, and he's like, let's go. So we barely get warm, and then I think we spank them. And it just goes to show, it's like, sometimes over preparation, getting 50 shots up versus those 5 that you feel pretty good about can go a long way. And we had the backs against the wall mentality that game, and we were, I think, 3-1 there. I don't recall exactly. I'm sure you can look it up, but that's always a fun place to play. We have a lot of respect for Coach Huggins, and it's always fun to play against those guys because they play so dang hard. But that's a historic stadium over there, and gets you out of your Texas climate a little bit.
For sure. Certainly should be a good game this Saturday. Not too many games in Big 12 this time of year that aren't good games. Well,
Yep.
Connor, we really appreciate you joining us on the One and O Sports Show. And now, just thank you so much for your time. And we're going to send it back to Jason and Edly in the studio.
Welcome.
Thanks, Adam. And we'll be back with Texas women's basketball manager Brett Haden. You don't want to miss it.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. So we are lucky to be joined by Texas women's basketball team manager Brett Haden. Brett, thank you for coming on.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So we have a couple of questions. I mean, obviously you have a very cool gig, team manager, something not very many people get to experience. My first question has to be, run us through what a typical day looks like.
Yeah, so I would say there's no typical day. We've got a couple things that are constant every day. We show up an hour and a half early. We set up the court. We get everything ready, all the practice stuff. And then we have a little bit of a time block, and that one is always different. You're rebounding for players. You're getting them whatever they need. You're helping the coaches with getting all sorts of random stuff. And then we practice for a good chunk of time. And during the practice, some of the managers are practice players. Some of the managers are just strictly managers. And so you're either just helping with calls and helping with getting things facilitated, or you're in the practice and you're playing and you're going against these girls and all the drills. And so we practice for a while, and then afterwards we'll help rebound for them some more. And then basically you just kind of do whatever is asked, do whatever is needed, packing for road trips, setting up game day. It's really just different every single day, outside of a couple constants.
Okay.
What has impressed you most about this team?
This team is really impressive with the way we can bounce back from either a bad practice or a bad game. We stay composed. We don't let that turn. We don't let one loss turn into two or turn into three. We continue to just persevere and fight back, and short memory. I think that's the biggest thing.
Kind of piggybacking off that question, obviously you said what's impressed you the most about the team. Who is one player that you think is getting overlooked, has been impressive this season, but not getting the attention that she deserves?
Aaliyah Matharu, she's a transfer out of Mississippi State. This is her first year here at Texas. She is one of the most skilled players I've ever seen. If you need a shot, she's going to make it. If she can get to the rim, she can hit threes. She really out of anyone, if you need a bucket, you go to Aaliyah Matharu, and I think that'll be big for us going into tournament time.
What is the biggest challenge you think the team will overcome if they make a deep run into the tournament?
I think one challenge is we've got a lot of people who are inexperienced, and it's kind of their first year within the program. With that comes a lot of growing pains, comes a lot of learning and understanding. And so I think once we get to tournament time, I think we're going to really have to lean on our seniors and lean on the people who have been there for multiple years. And I mean, we've got a weird mix of really young and 4-year seniors. And so they're going to have to work off each other, the young players, the freshmen. They're going to have to lean on the seniors' experience in that time, and we're going to have to go with it.
So Coach Vic Schaefer was able to turn Mississippi State into a national title contender. Took this Texas team to the Elite Eight last season. What stands out to you about him as a head coach?
Coach Schaefer, he is very unique in the way he coaches. He's very meticulous with everything he does. There's not a single thing that he does, from creating a practice plan to going over plays and doing whatever else he does. There's not a single thing he does that's by chance or by accident. He spends a lot of time working and like studying. He goes through past years, what worked, what didn't work. He is very, very meticulous with every single thing. He wants every single thing to be perfect and to be sharp, and it shows on the court with the way that we execute.
Yeah.
With the Longhorns having a couple games left in the Frank Erwin Center, what's your favorite memory about playing there?
My favorite memory is actually from whenever I was a little bit younger. I think Connor Lammert was actually just talking about this. The Javon Felix buzzer beater against North Carolina. Oh my gosh. Javon Felix was my favorite player at Texas all time. I love Javon Felix. And just witnessing that shot, it was the most excited I think I've ever been as a Texas sports fan. And it just brought so much good memories thinking about it every time.
Hope the Erwin Center can be closed out sort of that way. Now, how deep of a run, last question, do you think that this team can make in March? Obviously the Elite Eight last year. Do you think they'll make it further?
I think we can definitely make it further. Elite Eight last year, and that was with the first year as Coach Schaefer in our program. We had a lot of different dynamics going on, and this year I think we really just have a strong core going into this postseason time. We have a lot of girls who are really working hard, like they're in the gym constantly getting shots up. And we have a confidence. We believe that we can beat anybody in the country. We don't think anyone is better than us. And so with that being said, like, I don't see a reason why we couldn't go all the way. It's a fun team. We press. We're up in everyone's business. And that's going to get us far in the tournament.
Sure hope that the Lady Longhorns will be able to make it far, follow up last season's big Elite Eight run, making it a little bit deeper this March. When we return, me, Edly, and Brett, we will go through our picks for this weekend's NBA and college basketball slate. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back to the 1-0 Sports Show. This is our last segment of the day, and it's our Pick'em segment. So, first game, 76ers at the Timberwolves, 7 o'clock. Who y'all got?
I'll go first. I have the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden is going to be making his Sixers debut. I think that he's going to make a big splash. Sixers are overmatching the Timberwolves anyway, so Philadelphia is my pick.
I'm with you on that. James Harden's in the lineup. Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. Sixers aren't losing this one.
I'm going to go with the same way with you guys. It's just Joel Embiid. No one's really talking about it, but he's having an MVP season right now. And just having the experience from James Harden coming back, I'm going to go with the 76ers. Okay, Clippers at the Lakers. LA versus LA. Who do you guys got?
I'll go first. I'm going to go with the LA Clippers. I think that the Lakers are not who we thought they were this season. The Clippers are slowly but surely getting more healthy, kind of angling towards a Kawhi Leonard return. Give me the Clippers in the first game of the second half.
I'm with the Clippers as well. This Clippers team looks a lot similar, in my opinion, to the Clippers team that almost took the Warriors to a series a couple years ago. Young, unexperienced, but they play with a lot of fun. They play like some dogs.
I think this year it's going to be Clippers who rule LA right now, just because Lakers are just, I think they're packing up their season. They're just not, I don't even think they'll survive the play-in tournament. But the Clippers with Reggie Jackson and just a young, youthful team, it's really looking like the Clippers may sneak their win into the playoffs.
So game number 3, Grizzlies and Bulls. Edly, why don't you give me your pick first for that one?
I got the Grizzlies, and I know you love your Bulls, but I just think, I mean, it's going to be a tight game. But I feel like Grizzly has something up their sleeve just because they're young. But, I mean, it can be 50-50, but I'm taking the Grizzlies.
I'm with you on that. The Grizzlies are a dark horse NBA Finals team. Really young, but also a really fun team. Ja Morant he's really developed into superstar caliber almost. He's getting close to that level. And the Bulls are really nice, but I'm just feeling Grizzlies in this one.
Grizzlies and Bulls, probably the two most surprising teams in the NBA this year. I'm going to go with Chicago, and it's because of the run that DeMar DeRozan's been on. Saturday, he will have a chance to have his 9th consecutive game with 35-plus points, extending an NBA record. I'm going to go with the Bulls until DeMar DeRozan stops shooting the ball like he has.
Okay, Next game is the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks. I got the Nets just because we're going to have Kyrie back and Steph Curry. It's really looking like that trade is benefiting Nets so far. We'll see what James Harden can do with the 76ers. But I'm going to take Nets because it's just, you can see with the Bucks, if Gaddis doesn't drop more than 30 points tonight, they're not winning.
Man, this was a really good matchup in the Eastern Conference last year. But I'm going with the Bucks. Giannis, just too big, too good. Drew Holiday, he underrated, one of the most underrated players in the league, along with Chris Middleton. Both are underrated, but both, I'm expecting big games tonight.
I'm going to agree with Brett here. I'm going to have to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. Kevin Durant's still out. Kyrie's going to play. Ben Simmons is not going to play. Leaves a big, big, big size disadvantage without KD or Ben Simmons. Giannis is going to eat. Bucks all the way. Game number 5, we have college basketball. We're going to segue from the NBA to college basketball. One of the biggest matchups of the day on Saturday, Kentucky at Arkansas. Brett, why don't you give us your pick first? I'm
going with Arkansas on this one. That's an exciting team right there. They're long, they're lengthy, and they play some really good defense, and they get out and run. I think they're pulling out another upset. They beat Auburn a couple weeks ago. Here they come again.
Well, you were right with Arkansas, but I think Kentucky has this. I mean, defense, my motto is defense wins games, and Kentucky's on a good defense run, so give me Kentucky.
I'm going to go with the Wildcats as well. I think that they're looking like about the deepest team in the country. Saw against LSU on Wednesday. They were shut down. Ty Washington did not have a good game. Neither did Oscar Tshiebwe. They combined for 12 points. But Bryce Hopkins, the last man off the bench, scored 13 of his own to give the Wildcats a win. Next man up mentality. I love it. I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Okay. The next game is Auburn at Tennessee. Brett, who do you have?
Man, Rick Barnes, great defensive coach. They're really going to sit down. They're going to hold Auburn to lower points, but you can't beat scoring, and Auburn's got a lot of that. Tennessee's going to put up a fight, but Auburn's just going to put up too many points for Tennessee to match that.
Okay, I have to agree with you right there. It's just Auburn just has it. They're really talented offensively, and just Tennessee, it's off and on. You know, they did have some, games that they were supposed to win, but, sneaky wins from other teams. It's just, I just don't trust Tennessee. They're a talented group, but I just don't trust them defensively.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to have to go with the Tennessee Volunteers here. I think that the size disadvantage is going to be really big for Tennessee, having to face off against Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith. But Tennessee has performed well in their biggest games of the season. They don't play down to their opponents. They play up to their opponents. I think they're going to keep it close. Should be a great atmosphere. Auburn's been shaky of late. I'm going to go with the Vols.
Okay, Kansas at Baylor. Waco. So I'm going to take Kansas. I just, going to Waco, that's not an easy place to go to. But Kansas has a good defense, and Baylor still has some hurt players. So give me Kansas by a 3-point margin.
I'm taking Kansas big in this game. Abaji is looking very, very good lately. He's looking like the player that we all expect him to be. I think Baylor is not quite the team that we thought they might be as well. They're not really on the same level as last year, and they've been kind of shaky in and out this season. So give me Baylor. Give me Kansas.
I am actually going to go with Baylor, and it's a little bit of revenge for the Bears ever since they came into Kansas's arena last season and absolutely smacked the Jayhawks. The Jayhawks have beat the daylights out of Baylor in the 2 following matchups. So I think that Baylor, they have something to prove. This is a team that in the Big 12 they have not been able to beat, even though they are the most recent national champion. They're the reigning national champion. I think Kendall Brown's going to have a huge game. James Akinjo has been very good. Adam Flagler has been shooting the ball very well lately for the Baylor Bears. Give me Baylor. A big upset should be, like I said with the last game, a great home environment. College baseball now. Texas starting out the season 5-0 with a home sweep against Rice and then a road 2-game sweep against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Now they will have their first test of the year, taking on Alabama in a 3-game home series. Who do y'all have out of 3 games? Edly, let me hear it first.
I got 2. I believe in this baseball team, really. They're really looking good. I mean, Adam Menzies, he's a really good player. I mean, give me 2 games.
Give me all 3.
Okay.
I believe the final spread on the Rice series was 36-3 or something unreal like that. Texas baseball, we're legit this year. Texas is back. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2, and I'm going to kind of be, a little cautious again. I think that the team is much better than Alabama. I think that they're going to win all 3 games, but baseball's a very tough sport to predict. Nobody goes undefeated in baseball ever. I think that eventually we'll see a little slip up. All it takes is one pitcher to be off that day. So I think that the Horns will easily win this series and possibly sweep, but just out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to go with 2 out of 3 games.
Okay, back to basketball. Women's basketball, TCU at Texas on Saturday. Who do you guys got?
So I will go first. I'm going to have to go with the Longhorns. Number 11, TCU, going to come into the Erwin Center. Hopefully it will be a good crowd. Xavier Worthy will be there. Hopefully other football players will be there. Athletes come out and support the Longhorns. TCU doesn't have a shot against Texas in this game. Vic Schaefer is going to angle his squad towards the tournament. Making that March push begins. It's been underway, but continues on Saturday with that big home win. Going to look to really, really, really make a statement. One of the last games in the Erwin Center. Brett?
After we dropped some games to Baylor early in February, we started to catch some momentum back, started to get back on a roll. Once again, get some fans in the stadium, get some athletes out there. Students, it's a really fun game. We play high pace. It's not boring at all. It is very high pace. We press for 40 minutes, and TCU is going to feel the burdens of the press. They are going to feel the burdens of those press for sure.
Give me my girls, Lady Longhorns, and I feel like Nick Schaefer, with his anger about the crowd not being here, I feel like everyone's going to show up. It's on a Saturday night. What y'all doing on Saturday night? Just come to the game. And I feel like TCU just doesn't have a chance. I mean, the freshman's Roy Harmon, she's going to be all over the place, and there's no way they're going to stop her. So give me the ladies.
Final game of our pick'em slate. Texas men's basketball will head to Morgantown. Obviously, Bob Huggins had some choice words for the lack of the crowd in Austin, calling his home environment a real home environment. Now the Longhorns will be tested, headed to Morgantown to face a non-tournament team in West Virginia. Edly, why don't you go first? Who do you have?
I have Texas. In a close game, it's just the offense needs to just pull it together. I think if we start early, shooting really well, if Jones get out there, Allen, Carr, if they start shooting early, we have the game in the bag.
I'm going to go with Texas, but I think this is a close game. Morgantown's always a trap game, and Huggy Bear is going to get his team ready to play. But I don't know. Texas needs this win because we've got Baylor and Kansas coming up on the schedule. If you don't win this one, it's going to be hard to gain some momentum going into 2 very big games against top 10 teams.
Absolutely. I think that the one silver lining to this, the timing of this matchup in Morgantown, regardless of the outcome, is that playing in a home environment, road environment like that is going to help prepare the team for the tournament, especially considering that they're going to have the 2-day turnaround to another incredible environment, the final home game at the Erwin Center for the men's team. I think that Texas is going to win this game. They perform the best against teams that they have a size advantage against. They have a size advantage against West Virginia, and West Virginia has struggled shooting the basketball, especially with their big men. Perfect recipe of success for Texas. It should be a low scoring, high defense, high effort game. Give me the Longhorns. There's a reason why they're 20 and why West Virginia is not making the tournament this year. So that'll do it for this morning, but make sure that you tune in next week at 10 a.m. Check out our sister shows, College Press Box on Monday nights at 9:30 p.m. and College Crossfire, hosted by our very own Drew Jacob, Wednesday nights at 9. So for Edly, for Brett, thank you again for joining us. I'm Jason Kinander. Have a great day.